Hey guys, this is Mark Brown from Pocket Gamer with a review of Lara Croft GO, which is the new puzzle game from Square Enix Montreal. Now, if you played the quite brilliant Hitman Go last year, you'll know what to expect. That game kind of took the console stealth shooter action game Hitman and squished it all down into this very clever and very mobile-friendly puzzle game that was all about taking turns, moving about on a grid, and knocking off bad guys, and it had this kind of tabletop aesthetic. Lara Croft Go is the same idea, this time with Tomb Raider. It doesn't have the board game look, it's gone for a more kind of stylish, kind of Monument Valley inspired look. I think a lot of the music and the sound is very low key, and the art has got this sort of soft, subtle hue to it, which looks really nice. So it doesn't look like a board game. You actually do have Lara Croft as a character instead of as a little sort of porcelain figure. She's running about doing what she does best, murdering snakes and picking up items. This one is all about puzzle solving, basically. Tomb Raider as a game has puzzle solving as well as the kind of main mechanic, which is jumping about and moving about and also shooting tigers. This one is more about manipulating levers and switches and moving platforms and all that sort of stuff to solve puzzles and get through these tricky trap-filled tombs and dungeons. So, if you played Hitman Go, you know what to expect. If you didn't, well, the game is kind of regimented into these tight constraints. You have, first of all, is the layout of the level. Everything is built in a sort of grid-like structure, and there are these nodes along the floor that Lara and also everything else in the game moves along. So you could just sort of switch from one to the other by swiping the screen, and also if there's like a lizard chasing you, then that lizard will also move just from grid square to grid square. Similarly, there's the turn-based structure where nothing in the game moves until you do, but every time you swipe the screen, Lara will move in that direction, and also everything else will move as well. So if there's a boulder, then that will roll on every move, which is a bit strange, to be honest, because that's not how reality works, but it's all about how everything in the game kind of has this logic to it. Everything moves to like clockwork, and it's kind of choreographed to this precise and infallible logic, so you kind of always know exactly what everything is going to do when you do it. There's never a instance of thinking like, did I just can I solve that puzzle by just moving this block on between these two switches? Sometimes you have with puzzle games, there's a bit of wriggle room and you're not quite sure if you're doing everything exactly right. In this game, it's black and white. There's like a finite number of states the game can be in, which you might think could make things a little bit easy, and in a way it kind of is, just because you look at the level and you're like, well, there's only so many states this can be, and there's only so many moves I can make. It's kind of like chess or something. But like chess, you're having to think several moves ahead. So, one instance this takes place is there are these cracks in the floor, and when Lara moves onto that crack, then it sort of opens up even further, and then if you move onto it again, a hole will appear, and Lara will fall into it and die. But you might be able to use that to trap a lizard that's chasing you. So you stand on it once, and then the lizard stands on it and falls in. But then you might be trapped or something. So you're constantly having to think several moves ahead and thinking about how things are going to change. The game has just lots of really smart twists and turns, lateral, logical puzzles, sort of things that kind of change the way you think about the puzzles and the rules that keep it interesting and keep you on your feet. And the game is always introducing new stuff for you to play with. It never rests on its laurels for too long. So you'll be introduced to one type of enemy. There's the snakes, they don't move. Then there's the lizards that chase you. Then there are the spiders that move on a predictable path. And the spiders, by the way, in this game are hideous. They're really quite terrifying. And then you have things like saw blades that move along paths in the floor. You might have boulders that chase you. There are pillars you can move, but then you can also stand on them. The game is just sort of never really stands still and is constantly giving you new stuff to look at and play with, and it changes the rules, and then they'll put multiple things together. So then you put a saw blade and a snake in the same level, and the saw blade will cut the snake in half, and all good stuff like that. It's really fun. The only real issue I have with the game, to be honest, is that it can be a bit slow and sluggish to move around the game because of the grid-like system. You can speed up animations a lot if Lara is like pushing a block or whatever. You swipe the screen and she'll just sort of snap to it and do it really fast. But still, you know, if you want to move from one side of the level to the other, it's a lot of swipe, 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 and watching Lara just kind of skip between these nodes, which looks a bit unnatural and weird. And to be honest, the whole thing is kind of straining under the weight of its sort of artificial idea of the level being turn-based and split into this grid cells. So that's a bit strange. But to be honest, it's just a really good puzzle game full of fantastic ideas. The design is just really well tuned. It teaches you everything about the game without tutorials, so every time a new mechanic is introduced, you just get a level where it's set up in such a way that there's no way you won't figure out exactly what it means and how to do it and all of the constraints of that new mechanic. So it's just really smart in that way. And like I said before, I really like the atmosphere, the presentation. One of the best things about it is the menu screen, which is a bunch of Lara's stuff in a circle which you spin around, which if you played the original Tomb Raider back on the PlayStation or the Sega Saturn, you'll recognise that as well. Speaking of the original Tomb Raider, this is kind of the reason why Lara Croft GO works so well. You can play Tomb Raider 1 and 2 on iOS and possibly Android as well, and it is just rubbish. It just is, you know, an absolute disaster. That game didn't play particularly well on a PlayStation controller. It really doesn't play very well on a touchscreen, but it's just this idea that you can port a console game to an iPad and you can put touchscreen controls on it, and you know, that will work. But it's so nice to see a developer instead just take the essence of a game, the feeling of a game, and then turn it into something completely different. And which is why Hitman Go works so well, and Lara Croft GO works well too. And I'm kind of like excited to see Square Enix make this into, you know, this whole franchise. Where's Deus Ex Go? Where's Dragon Quest Go? I'm kind of down for that. Overall then, Lara Croft GO is a fantastic game. It's just a really enjoyable puzzler. It looks gorgeous. There's loads of clever ideas. It's just great. I recommend it fully. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.